the month of fasting, month of Quran, a time of charity, and a time of restraint and self-observation. Today we're discussing Ramadan, a time of holy sacrifice. In high school, I had a friend who was Muslim, and each year he would come in telling us about the beginning of Ramadan, what he would do during mosque. I was so interested in his faith, I would always ask questions, understanding what he was doing, and I chose this as my research topic to learn about. I learned about the basics of Ramadan and the foundation to the process of fasting, and then to the conclusion of Ramadan during the Night of Power and during the Feast of Fast Breaking. Let's begin with the foundation of Ramadan and the basics of Ramadan. From Britannica, I learned the tradition of Ramadan is a time of self-observation and reflection and the prayer to the Quran. It is a time when God forgives sins to those who participate within the faith and within the tradition, and he forgives the sins of the past, or within the past year. It is known as one of the most sacred times during the Islamic faith and is celebrated as such. It falls on its own calendar called the lunar calendar, and it is held on the ninth month and is known as the holy month of fasting. It is about 10 days shorter each year, and this is because the lunar calendar, or the Islamic calendar, is shorter than the Gregorian calendar, the most commonly used in the US. It begins on the first day of the crescent moon during the 9th month, and then is then concluded on the first day of the 10th. All right, and then leading from that comes into the process of fasting. From PBS, the process of fasting is a time that proves self-restraint and devotion to the Islamic faith. It is a time when able-bodied individuals give up food, water, and immoral thoughts such as lust, greed, or jealousy during the daylight. Accommodations are made for those such as pregnant women, the sick or elderly, and then young children, and they are not expected to participate within the tradition. This is then continued at sunset during the breaking of the fast with a meal called iftar. During this, families often come together out of their mosque or within their homes, and throughout the process of Ramadan, the entire Quran is recited in its entirety. At the end, makeup days may be made for those who either broken their fast or days were forced to be skipped. And then this leads into the conclusion of Ramadan during the Night of Power and the Feast of Fast Breaking. From Britannica begins the Night of Power, which is known as the time whenever God bestowed to Muhammad the Prophet the Quran, and is said to have begun the Islamic faith. This is celebrated with extra communal prayer, and the Quran has been known to have been the guide for those of Islamic faith and to show them the way. This happens on one of the final 10 nights of Ramadan. And is celebrated. It happens on one of the final 10 nights of Ramadan and may change depending on the different denominations that are being celebrated. The ending of Ramadan is then concluded with the Feast of Fast Breaking, and this happens it is known as one of the most celebrated holidays of the entire Islamic religion. This is often celebrated with communal prayer at dawn on the first day of the 10th month, and is then celebrated as well with gifts of food, new clothing, and as well as visits to the graves of lost relatives. Understanding the importance in the conclusion of Ramadan through the Night of Power and the Feast of Fast Breaking is important in recognizing the importance of the process of Ramadan, such as the process of fasting, as well as the basics of Ramadan, and the basics of Ramadan as a whole, as well as the foundation. Despite it not being widely well known within the US, Ramadan is one of the most, not one of the most celebrated, it is one of the most celebrated holidays and traditions within the entire Islamic religion. and is how many Muslims choose to present themselves to their God.